Well, I'm excited to introduce Barbara Sheehan Zeidler. She's a licensed professional counselor and an EMDRIA-approved EMDR consultant. She has advanced studies in EMDR therapy, internal family systems, sand train sand play, polyvagal theory, natural reprocessing, integrating somatic psychotherapy with EMDR, accelerated experiential psychodynamic therapy, and brain spotting. The foundation of Barbara's work centers around the premise of therapeutic presence. As a trauma-informed clinician, she works with the whole person, the body, the mind, and the spirit. She lives in Colorado with her family, and she's grandparents empty nesting now and loving it. So welcome, Barbara. Thank you for joining us.
I don't know if y'all can read body language, but a little excitement to be here. Thanks for inviting me, Kelly. I'm really super excited to be here on this blue sky Colorado day to talk about something I'm really excited and passionate, and I keep coming back to as foundational to impactful therapy. So I'll be talking about dysregulation, co-regulation, and being a super co-regulator. So again, thanks for inviting me. I'm seeing so many familiar faces from all over the world here. And I just wanted to pause and say thank you to everybody that sort of stopped their day, paused their day to want to play and participate with us, because that's like up here in the ventral is where I like to live. And that's where I hope to invite each of you to come as well. I did make a little PowerPoint, or, I'm using Canva now, slide presentation, and Kelly is going to be emailing out to everybody afterward. And it's just a little thing because we're only meeting for just a little bit. But I think it's going to get across some of the important things. So having said that, I would like conversation. If I ask a question, I hope you just, raise your hand, unmute, and participate or pop it into chat, because this is all about community and connection. And it's been hard. It's been hard. Our professions are already challenging in interesting ways, and these past 2 years has been hard. So as we transition, I'm just going to invite myself and anybody who'd like to participate to just sort of arrive here and be more present to this moment, and be more open to learning and connecting, and be even more a little bit at peace and settling in and just slowing down. And that's one of the ways I re-regulate. So welcome, everybody. Again, my name is Barbara Sheehan Zeidler in Littleton, Colorado, and today I'm going to be talking to you about how you can be a super co-regulator. So I'm going to do a little bit of a screen share. And where am I? Screen share. Remember 2 years ago when we didn't know how to do these things? I didn't know how to do these things. And now here I am, just like doing it. So this piece of artwork, by the way, I thought I love this piece of artwork. And it's by the Ukrainian artist, and he presented it in Burning Man 2015. And I really like it because I think that we're all seeking connection, but sometimes we don't know how to. And what I hope to communicate and talk about with each of you today is when we're aware, like, oops, we're not in the best of connection, what we can do to come back into connection. Has anybody seen that piece of art on the web, or maybe even went to Burning Man? And you don't have to disclose if you don't want to, but are you familiar with that piece of art? Yeah, I see some heads shaking. Okay. And so maybe some of you have seen this, but therapy with a super co-regulator, clients show up and they may be in the storm of their lives. They may be lost in a fog and not know where to go, what to do, what direction is true north for them. And maybe you've sat with clients before. I'm going to just stop screen share for a little minute and I'll come back to it. And I'm just looking at everybody right now Who here works with trauma? Just sort of raise your hand. I'm just looking around the rooms. So we work with trauma. And what is it that we know about trauma and the nervous system? Does anybody have like a one sentence thing? Trauma and nervous system, what happens there?
It becomes very dysregulated, and chronically so.
Chronically so. Thank you, Richard. Yeah. And so it's right. And thank you, Karen. So here's the nervous system that's pure and pristine for the most part, unless the mother had some trauma during pregnancy. So here's the nervous system ready to live their best life. And then stuff happens. And then what happens, thank you, Bonnie, I see that, is that it comes in and it lives in our cells and it just regulates, it makes the nervous system not as optimal. But one of the things I've read, and I loved this, and it offers such hope to my clients, is what is learned can be unlearned. I'm going to say that again. What is a learned survival behavior can be unlearned in that space of safety and connection, right? And so that's us. That's us. They're coming to us to unlearn. And so our primary function is, how safe am I? How safe am I? So I'm just going to breathe into that, because guess what? We get to be humans. We get to have lives. Years and years and years ago, our dog died and I was a wreck. And I thought, how am I going to work? How am I going to hold space when I'm crumbling on the inside? A little while ago, my mom died. How am I going to do that? And yet we do, and we do the best we can, and we connect in the best way that we know how. So you can do, are y'all feeling it? Is it just me? Are we feeling the importance of this topic? That where my nervous system is, co-creates the space to invite the client's nervous system. So if I'm hijacked up there and not regulated, and I'm up here, how is it possible that my client can go into their story, into their body, and into their healing when I'm up here? It just can't happen. I'm doing a talk for Scaling Up in June at the Be Bold Summit. And one of the things I'm going to talk about is a study facilitated by HeartMath that says from our heart energy, there is this electronic magnetic resonance, yes, that goes out 3 feet. So literally between me and the client, 3 feet in, we're in this synergistic space together. Our energy is swirling and playing. And the other day I was in the office with a client and we were talking about that. And I just put my arm, that doesn't look good on the video, does it? I just put my arm in between us and I just moved my fingers a little bit. And the client was like, whoa. And I said, what did you notice? Now, I don't know if it was real or not real, but the client went, whoa, because we were co-creating the field, the space between us. Yes, I agree, Karen, about Lisa Dion. Yes, very much so. Okay, I'm going to go back to the screen share. Well, before I do, I want to pause for a question, a comment, a breath, a clarification. Is anything percolating up for anybody that wants to just be seen?
How do we not be afraid when we are in that kind of dysregulated state and we know it, but we still have to see the client? How do we deal with our own fear about that? And maybe you'll get into that, but.
I love that question, Carissa. Thank you. So I'll talk about my own story, how I did it. And I'm going to give some general highlights about foundation to do that, because again, we all have lives. For those parents that had, or caregivers that had children at home that they were trying to homeschool and be a therapist in their closet, I see Aaron, right? Like, what? How the heck did you all do that? I'm empty nesting, so, I'm good. So there are some key foundational things that I'm going to actually talk about. But for me, what I did is I learned this forever ago from a training in the basement of a church in Boulder. Oh my goodness, ego state therapy. Who do we know? Carol Forgosh, thank you, brain. And Carol taught me at that training, she taught me about intentional structural dissociation. Pretty cool, right? So I would take that part of me that was like, I just don't have it in me. I'm so sad that Sony was our girl, our little Shih Tzu, named after Sony PlayStation. And I was like, just taking that really sad part of me. And I was worried about my boys and worried about my husband. And I was just so sad. And so I lovingly took that part of me. And I said, you know what, for now, Barbara, you are going to be a really tuned in clinician. So I invited that part of me because it was so overwhelming to just go over there for a little bit. And then in between appointments, I would just breathe into that part and have a little cry and have a sip of tea and go for a little walk. And then I would come back in and be that very dedicated, tuned in clinician, knowing that I will be with my grief in just a wee bit. So it's the concept, Carissa, and everybody, is know where you are. Where was I in my nervous system? I talk a lot about polyvagal therapy. This is all PVT. Compartmentalization. Yeah, Karen, you could call that. Karen's posting into chat, is a compartmentalization. I would say that, but it's a slight twist in that I'm just gently putting it there, putting it aside. Yeah, Bonnie, you and I could be buddies. Bonnie says polyvagal is everything. I agree. So that's how I would do it, Carissa. But how did I even know to do that? Because I knew my nervous system. So for those that are PVT geeks like myself, where was I? We have ventral, vagal, sympathetic, and dorsal. Where was I in those moments of I'm in extreme grief and I don't think I can go on? What playground was I in? What's that, Aaron? You did that.
Dorsal vagal.
Yeah, I was playing in dorsal sympathetic. And that's not the place to do therapy for Barbara, right? I like to be up in my ventral. Yep, dorsal. Angela's here. Hi, Angela. Okay, a lot of these people I know, so it's so nice to feel supported, y'all. Just want to let you guys know I'm feeling really supported. Going to go back to the screen share unless there's something else, a question, a comment, or a clarification.
There was a mentioning in the chat about the 3 feet with the energy and how the COVID rules were 6 feet, or how does that work when we're on Zoom? You might
Got it. Great question. So COVID rules, like, you needed to be 6 feet apart. So it would the field would still be there, but not as strong. And I only recently have gone back to the office. So follow the COVID rules. And how is it when you're on Zoom? Love that question. And before Kelly and I hit, what did you say? It was, come on in. You said something. I was like, oh my gosh, it's happening. I listened to Deb Dana. I am a Deb Dana fangirl. It used to be Bruce Springsteen and now Deb Dana. So thank you. I saw you, Karen. Okay. And so what Deb said the other day was, because she was talking about just that. How do we do polyvagal on Zoom? I physically am not with you. So that study, right, Karen. So that study is like null and void. But what Deb said was, but if you're in your ventral, you connect. Think about that. I'm going to pause and I want that to if you're in your ventral vagal, you connect. Yeah. Before Zoom, I was around when telephones used to be screwed to the wall with a cord, and I could only go 4 feet. But boy, when I was talking to Mark Lixie in 1979, I was ventralizing with Mark, right? Mark, if you're here, you still are an important part of my life. And so ventral is a state of being within the self. Ooh, I like that. Ventral is a state of being within the self. And if I can maintain my ventral, then I invite you over all the miles to come to your ventral as well. It's a sense of being safe. It's a sense of presencing. Just going to give that some breath and some space. And letting it slow down a little bit. Does this resonate? Does this connect? Does this feel foreign? Is it something you long for? Is it something you've experienced? Karen.
Just as you say, that ventral is a state of being within ourselves, and it's being in that safe and present, fully connected place. For the question about how do we do that through Zoom, it's we know that our tone of voice, our facial expressions, our body posture, our proximity are all ways to create safety.
Mm-hmm.
And so we can ask, for example, should I be here? Should I be here? Should I be here? Where do I feel?
Yes.
Where does it feel best to you? And that gives that person the messages that this is going to be a safe place for them. And so that's how we do it through Zoom, even with very littles.
Lovely, lovely, lovely connection. Somebody has read Stephen Porges and knows about prosodic voice. Absolutely. So I thank you for bringing that question on board, Kelly, because that's one of the challenges and gifts, because now when I'm on Zoom, I get to see people all over the world, all over the state, and bring some breath and space, because I know my system. I know my system. I'm going to go back to screen share, but again, you'll be getting these slides. If we don't get through it all, that's fine by me, because you'll be getting them and we can talk about it. Okay, so Stephen Porges in a video chat, he coined the phrase super co-regulator, and I globbed onto it like wonderful. And what he said was, it's that person that when that person walks into the room and the room is topsy-turvy in all which ways, that the room, because that presence, that regulated presence is there, inviting other people to re-regulate. So that's what he means by the super co-regulator, is that I don't get lost in somebody else's vortex. I'm the lighthouse and people make their way over here. Okay. And then Gabor Mate, right? He says safety is not the absence of threat. It's the presence of connection. And isn't that lovely? Isn't that lovely? So what that is, I'm just checking my time. What? Okay. So Gabor Mate talks about that, and which is, for me, talks about polyvagal theory. How well am I connecting? How well am I realizing? Now, part of this is just some terms: neuroception, hierarchy, self-regulation, and co-regulation. Neuroception is a phrase coined by Stephen Porges, and we have it is our nervous system in the unconscious realm assessing, am I safe? Is this danger? Is this life-threatening? So the nervous system is always scanning and assessing, always scanning and assessing. And many of my clients, and maybe many of yours, their nervous systems don't experience safety, don't experience safety. I've oftentimes worked with people and they cry. And I'm like, so what are you noticing now? What's going on now? I've never felt this before. What are you noticing? I'm relaxed. I feel safe. What a gift that is, to bring the gift of felt safety to a person. So neuroception, hierarchy. In polyvagal theory, hierarchy, we either go down the ladder or up the ladder. And I think I saw somebody pop in chat, Deb Dana's ladder. Absolutely. And in the June presentation, I'm actually going to take y'all up and down the ladder and give you keywords, et cetera, et cetera. I studied with Deb for an entire year. I was telling a colleague yesterday. So in 2021, I met with Deb twice a month. I still miss her. I still miss visiting with Deb on a regular basis. But hierarchy is going ventral, sympathetic, dorsal, dorsal, sympathetic, ventral. And I remember having a discussion like, hey, can we go dorsal, ventral? And the answer is no, we can't. We can't. How many of you, raise your hands, shout it out. You're sitting with a client and they're pretty much in a numb state and in a collapsed dorsal. There is a threat. I have no chance of winning. Let me feign death and get ready to die, right? That is essentially dorsal. And then in the presence of your ventral vagal safe system, they come up and the tear comes, just one tear at first. And then they come up, maybe their shoulders come up and maybe their eyes open and they look down and there's more tears. And then they come up and they're just crying. Give that some safe space. And then they come up and they're like, wow, what was that? We just got to witness the amazing system that makes us up, going from dorsal to sympathetic up to ventral, all because we held that safe space, safe and connected space. So hierarchy would go up and down and up and down. Self-regulation and co-regulation. It's a biological imperative, says Stephen Porges, that we absolutely need connection. Without connection, we are not thriving and we are not doing our best, which is, you'll see in a slide in just a little bit, problematic in the pandemic. Autonomic nervous system. This, I know this is review, this is really, really quick, but ventral, social engagement. I like to say it's safe to stay and play. Sympathetic is like from the collarbones to the lower diaphragm. And when we're in a true sympathetic state, that means that my neuroception, right, that thing just under consciousness, it's perceiving some form of threat, but I can do something about it. So I perceive threat, I can do something about it, fight, flight. Dorsal, on the other side, I perceive threat, but I can't do anything about it. So let me feign death, let me collapse, let me physically numb, emotionally numb. Let me get ready to go robot is what I call it too. Pausing there for a minute. Does anybody have a question, a clarification, a comment, anything popping up for anybody about the 3 states of the autonomic nervous system?
I'll just mention, because it's a newer learning for me and it really has helped. Sympathetic is not always about running away, which is how I like conceptualize it at first. It's also about just activation. So going into an active state of doing something.
An active state of doing something
yeah.
Wonderful. Yes. And yeah, fight, flight are the words we say, but it's not literal. It's not literal. I'm activated to do something. That was perfect. Was that you, Carissa? Did I recognize your voice?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Thank you. And then over here, Deb Dana fangirl going on, but this felt appropriate that Deb is saying it's our ventral experience that creates the social engagement. If I'm in a sympathetic experience, I'm not inviting you to fully engage. I'm just not, because your nervous system is saying, not really safe, not really sure. And so it's an imperative that we as clinicians who are trying to hold and create this safe space that would maybe invite learning and healing, it's imperative that we know where we are. So that's the beauty of our nervous systems. We can support each other through our ventral energies. Yay, Debs. What I love about Deb is that she took Stephen's very, very academic, medically based work and turned it into language for me. Now, this is something that you'll get more of if you choose to go to the Be Bold in June. This is just the tip of the iceberg, because I asked for questions like, hey, does anybody have a specific question? And both of the questions were, what do I do when I get out of ventral? What do I do? And the first thing is, yay, that you noticed you were out of ventral. Applause all around that you even noticed you were out of ventral. Because in that noticing, you can do something. I have something that I teach my clients. I love acronyms. And one of them is ABC. And that acronym stands for aware, breath, choice. And so in your awareness, take a breath, take a moment, and then make a choice. What do you want to do? Do you want to stay on this path or do something different? Change a thought, change a behavior, because that would bring on your DE. Yeah, I could do actually the whole alphabet. That will determine your experience. ABCDE, aware, breath, choice, determines your experience. Does that resonate? Does that make sense? Right? But now y'all can teach your clients ABCDE, not FU. That's another song on TikTok. Okay. So tips to bring ventral vagal on. Mindful breath. And notice it's a mindful breath. When we are not mindful, it's a breath. But a mindful breath, it could be, but it's mindful. And usually mindful breaths deepen. And when we have a mindful breath, I don't know if anybody practices yoga here or is that type of a practitioner, but we energize our system, we oxygenate our brain, we create space between stimulus and response. So we have great choice. Be curious. Ooh, what's happening for me? What just happened? Why am I responding? Let me organize that there and get back to my client. All that can happen in 2 seconds flat. Aromatherapy. No joke. So Kelly, because I was surprised how, I love that y'all are here, but I was surprised. I was surprised. I just looked, there's 71. So Kelly said, okay, we're going to let them in. And she told me the number. And I was like, wait. And I got my aromatherapy, my favorite aromatherapy. It's called Distress Express. Aromatherapy, that's one of my go-tos if a person has a sense of smell. The reason I like it is that because it goes very quickly to that part of the brain that it doesn't, yep, okay, yeah, I see people nodding. Yeah, thank you, Jeanette. So it goes to that part of the brain that calms us down. It doesn't have to go through all, exactly. Jeanette, do you want to pop in? Go ahead. Am I saying, no? Okay. But you got it. Hand to heart, and then feel your heartbeat. One hand over the heart, one hand over the belly. If people are comfortable either touching or approximately touching their body. And that just slows us down. Another one is movement, any type of movement. Who was doing this talk? Frank Anderson. I was listening to Frank, he's an IFS guy. And Frank was talking about how he's working and studying with one of the Dancing with the Stars people. And she has a thing, it's called Kinergy. And Frank is getting into the power of dance to re-regulate. So I'm curious about that. But another one I learned is the fascia facial. I'll go into more detail about that in the June training, but basically if you want to do it, the ventral vagal nerve endings are pretty much up here. They're pretty much all around here. And so the fascia facial is, I'm taking my 3 fingers and I'm just starting at my pineal gland or the middle of my forehead. And I'm pulling down really gently, like my skin is tissue paper. So there is some pressure, but not a lot. And I'm pausing here, massaging around my eyes. And I'm dropping down, following my jawline. And coming off. And then I flick because I just feel like I'm getting rid of things. And then I do it again. And so I'll talk and I'll explain. So what I'm doing is just under the skin is the fascia layer. And the fascia, it can tighten up and have us feel tense, or it can loosen up and have us feel present. I don't know if you can sense into me, maybe you can hear the tone of my voice or the pace of my voice, but I've definitely dropped. I've definitely dropped more into a present place. Clients love this. And I think I learned this with Ariel Schwartz. I love to give credit when I can remember. And I think I learned this with Ariel Schwartz, Dr. Ariel Schwartz, who does polyvagal theory and yoga up in Boulder. Okay, so those are just some quick tips. But between appointments, before appointments, give yourself space. You are a person, you have a body, you have a nervous system. Give yourself space. I like to book every 75 minutes. I see a client for 60 and I say, au revoir, au revoir. And then I have 15 minutes to drink water, to move, to just do some stretches, to do some Qigong, to do some tapping, to do some shoulders. I do all the things I can do to like say, thank you for that experience and welcoming the new one. I drink cold water quite a bit, and there's reasons why. If you want to, try this one, just try. So the tongue is a muscle, okay? In fact, it's one of the muscles that stays strong all our life. I double dog dare you. Let your tongue relax to the lower jaw. And what do you notice? What do you notice as you simply let your tongue drop? Did you notice an organic breath? Did you notice your shoulders relaxing? What did you notice? Simple. Deb would say, savor a micro moment for 30 seconds or less. So a good micro moment is like for me, this I just love this day. And if I savor it, meaning I really linger with it, I breathe it in, I take it in, maybe I experience it with all my 5 senses, but 30 seconds or less. And the reason why is because if we go more, then our nervous system could go into faulty connection, or it could go to a place that we don't want to go. So if a client says, I can't sustain that, try 2 seconds, 30 seconds or less, okay? And then the last part is to be very, very mindful. This is your job. Like, I know that we're here to provide space, but how do we do that without knowing our own internal space? Really, really important to do that. Questions about that though, before I move on? Any questions? Makes sense? I am not keeping up with chat, Kelly, so if there's anything in there, please let me know. Okay. Okay, where are we? Good, I've got about 5 minutes. So it did this again, Kelly. Okay, hang in there, people. For some reason, it went back to number 1. Okay, hang in there. We got that. Okay, thank you. So now you should be seeing some extra challenges of current times. It's been hard for me. Kelly and I were chit-chatting again before the talk, and I said, oh, I talk out loud. And she said, oh, you're an external processor. Like, yeah, I am. And these past 2 years, I haven't been seeing my people to talk. I live with my best friend, my boyfriend, my husband of 38 years, but I can't talk to him. And so I was starved for that type of connection, that type of connection that for the past decade, I was so used to. So the extra challenges, and these are just some, please pop into chat, please. If you noticed other extra challenges of these past 2 years or current times. The other part for me was my life is going on, worried about my kids. My son got sick in California, really sick. He couldn't get out. There was nothing on his shelves. And he happens to be my baby of 28 years, but he's still my baby. And so I just went around my house and I put just half empty bottles of this and full bottles of that and toilet paper. And we put it in a box and we overnight shipped it to him. And then I was a clinician. That was hard. And then maybe sometimes during these past little bit, I was stuck in survival state. My sister in New Jersey is a long hauler. She had COVID for over 100 days. And there were times where I just cried. And there were times where I was not that A+ clinician, not that I ever think I am, but I was with a client who, of course, guess what they were talking about? Just make a guess. Their loved one, long haulers, their loved one, and et cetera, et cetera. And my tears would come, and I would touch my heart, and I'd be like, that was me saying, Barbara, it's okay. And you can be with the client. It was a both and experience. It was both and. So I want to pause. I think I have a minute. I want to pause and just open that up because that was a heavy thing. So I just want to create some space and presence and invite you, if that was dysregulating, to invite you to re-regulate because we're human beings having human experiences, holding sacred space for those also having human experiences. How's everybody doing? I just want to take a pulse in the room. Everybody okay enough? Everybody okay enough? Okay. Maybe it was me. So let me go back to screen share. And my sister, by the way, footnote, she's a rock star. So my sister in New Jersey, she still struggles walking and talking still, but she's working on it. Okay. So therapy with a super co-regulator, AKA you. Ask yourself, is your ventral regulation being felt by others? That's the question. Are you in your ventral? If you're in your ventral, they have the opportunity to feel it. So that's the big question that I want to be sure each of you take, because it is your responsibility, you as the clinician in the room, to be aware of your nervous system and re-regulate as needed. I just can't say it more plainly than that. It's your responsibility. I feel like I'm going all the way down to my ethics. It's my ethical responsibility. Oh gosh, I have got a fan. Okay, Jeanette, I see you. And I feel that's how deeply I feel this, that if I am not in my zone, I should be referring out or calling out that day. So it's my responsibility to do my therapy, to know my nervous system, to have my tools in place, like aromatherapy, like being able to do one of these things, right? It's my responsibility. And that's it. This last slide is, because we're going to toss it over now. Where am I, Kelly? Yeah, I'm good. If you want to know more about this, because I'm going to go in more detail, my talk at the Be Bold Summit is the space between you and me, exploring the therapeutic presence with our ABCs and PVT. ABCs and that talk, right? Because you got your ABCDE. ABCs in that talk is attunement, exploring our biases, and creating that connection. I'm really excited to talk about this with whoever is in attendance. And I'm going to stop share now. Hi, I can see everybody again. DE, Karen, the first ABCDE was aware, breath, choice, determines experience. Where can they record? Kelly's going to answer that one.
Thank you so much, Barbara, for
My
this,
pleasure.
quick presentation. It was wonderful. I feel regulated. And I appreciate everybody who participated. We are going to send out an email after this afternoon with the recording, so you'll be able to access it. And then the Be Bold Summit is going to be in person in Denver on June 10th and 11th. And also online live streaming if you can't join us live. So we're going to have 18 CEs available included in the price. We're going to have a kind of social gathering the day before for those that are in person on Thursday evening. We'd love for you to join us. There's going to be 12 different speakers. Barbara's one of them. And then also in these emails that you're going to get following up, there's going to be a special link that's available for you all for the next 3 days that gives you an extra 20% off discount if you sign up for the summit. And I'll put that link in the chat as well. So if you'd like to join us or if you have questions, we'd love to have you there. We are going to have EMDRIA CEUs for the EMDRIA talk. So there's probably only going to be a couple. So we need to figure out, Rosario, which ones are EMDR specific, because the actual summit is not specifically EMDR related, but there are going to be some EMDR therapy talks. So we will apply for EMDRIA CEUs for those. Great questions. Any other questions, feel free to stay on. I'll be on for a little bit longer, but if you got to go, we understand. If you don't see our email, check your spam. Sometimes they end up in your spam folder. So if you don't see it by tomorrow, check that area. And you can reach us at info@scalingupemdr.com if you have any questions. Thank you all so much for joining us, and thank you, Barbara.
My pleasure. Everybody unmute, hear your voices, come out as a cacophony and say, yay, or whatever you want to say. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Yay, Ventral Bagel. Yay,
Wonderful.
tapping. Yay, Polyvagal.
Thank you.
So fun. Thanks for playing,
Yes.
everybody.
Serve
Thank